When passing through airport immigration, even the most innocent looking questions can be hidden traps. Whether you're visiting the US or traveling abroad, one wrong word could turn your 2-minute check into a full-blown interrogation, speaking from experience here. The first question is, what do you do for work? This seems innocent enough, but there's lots of ways that this can turn ugly fast. For starters, if you're a digital nomad like me, you might answer with something like, I'm a digital nomad and I work online. You might even think an answer like this helps prove that you're financially stable, which is another issue that we'll get to in a sec. But it also might prompt the officer to follow up with, are you planning to work while in our country? And at this point, you're kind of trapped. You'd either have to lie, which I do not recommend, or you'd have to say yes, which could end badly depending on the country and the officer's mood that day. I fell for this trap before and I ended up just giving a super vague answer like, well, if you consider me recording videos showing how awesome your country is, then I suppose so. It seemed to satisfy this particular officer, so I got off lucky, but a lot of countries nowadays actually offer digital nomad visas, and so if you try to enter the country using the wrong visa, then the odds aren't in your favor. Nowadays, when I get asked about my occupation, I just keep it as vague as possible and just tell them I'm in marketing. But what about if you're between jobs? Well, instead of spilling your whole life story of how you were an engineer, but times are hard and you got laid off and blah, 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 just say that you're an engineer or a teacher or a salesman or whatever. Don't explain your job situation, just state your profession. This follows my #1 rule for answering immigration questions, which I'll cover in a second. Saying that you're jobless suggests that you lack financial stability or ties to your home country, which could lead to further interrogation. Next, each country has a limit to how long you're allowed to stay depending on your nationality and your visa. That might be 3 days, 3 months, or sometimes even more. But as you'll see in a second with what happened to my wife Diane, even if you stay within those limits, you can still have problems. But first, a mistake that I made in immigration personally. If you're on a long-term trip, it's nice to just go with the flow and not plan out every single detail. And if you're like me, you might not always know exactly how long you want to stay. But trust me, answering with words like, I'm not sure yet, or I might extend my visa, raise red flags that you're a potential visa overstay risk. It's best to always give them specific dates, even if in the back of your head you know that these are just tentative dates. Another thing you want to be careful about is when you're traveling on one-way tickets. You'll always want to have proof of onward travel or proof that you're leaving the country, and if you don't know exactly how long you're going to stay, that may involve renting an onward ticket or buying a fully refundable ticket. But if you do this, just make sure to remember the dates of the flights that you don't plan on taking, which can be easy to forget sometimes. By the way, I am not recommending that you overstay or break any laws. This proof of onward travel thing is just a hoop that you have to jump through if you're not sure about your plans. They want to see that you have a ticket out of the country, but there's no laws saying that you can't change your minds on the dates that you want to fly out of the country as long as you're within your allowed time. But if you're traveling to some countries, including the US, you may want to be careful even if you're staying within your allowed time limits, especially if you're on a tourist visa. For example, my wife is Colombian and she had a US tourist visa that allows her to travel for 6 months per year in the US. And during lockdown a few years ago, Colombia's borders were closed, so we bought a camper van in the US and just hopped around to different national parks for 5 months, then left before her visa time ran out. Fast forward a couple years when she tried to renew this tourist visa and they rejected her because of those 5 months that she stayed in the US a few years back. Apparently, even though she was within her allowed time limits, they just couldn't comprehend how someone could travel for 5 months in the US without working, so they just assumed that she was coming to the US to work illegally. They didn't even let her talk to defend herself or show the thousands of pictures of travel proof that we had. All that said, a Colombian traveling to the US for a few months will be treated way differently than an American traveling to Colombia for a few months, and I know this is unfair, but it's just how things work. If you're from a first world country traveling to a developing country, then you shouldn't have any problems staying as long as you stay within your allowed time and as long as you like this video. This next immigration question can mean 2 different things. They might be asking how much money you have in your bank accounts, or they might be asking how much cash do you actually have on your person. Both large and small amounts can be problematic here. If you don't have enough, then you risk getting denied for not showing financial stability. But if you're traveling with too much cash, then you might get in trouble if you don't declare it. Usually it's not having enough that's the problem for most people, or at least not being able to prove that they have enough. Diane almost got denied entry into Spain for this one as well. I don't know why immigration officers just like to pick on her. I've never heard people talking or warning about this, but apparently apparently in Spain and probably other countries as well, they require you to be able to prove that you have $125 per day per person for the length of your stay. You can either show this by carrying cash or by showing bank statements and your credit card. In Diane's case, they didn't even give her the option for the bank statement, and they expected her to just have $1,125 in her pocket, which is ridiculous. These types of financial requirements are pretty common with your visa applications that you do beforehand, but this is the first time I've heard of it being demanded right there in the airport and immigration. But when I looked it up, there it was right on the official immigration website. The thing is, most people don't realize that they should check the country's immigration website to see what kind of proof they'll need besides their visa. And even if you do, you never know when an officer is going to throw you a curveball and ask to see proof for something that you don't have a screenshot or a printout of. That's why it's important to always have a reliable internet connection on your phone so you can look stuff up on the spot. You can't always depend on airport Wi-Fi, which is why I recommend always having a travel eSIM data plan like Olafly, who was kind enough to sponsor this video. That way, if immigration asks to see details about your hotel reservation, or they ask to see your bank statements, or they demand that you show return tickets, or they ask to see anything else that you weren't expecting, you can just quickly look it up on your phone. You can set up a travel eSIM on your phone in minutes, all by yourself, even before you leave on your trip, so that you're connected the second you land in your destination. With Olafly, all you need to do is pop open their website, search for the destination you need, check out, and then follow the simple setup instructions when you're ready to travel. Just make sure to check if your phone is compatible using the link below, and if you need any help, I show exactly how to set things up in this video. I like Olafly because they focus on unlimited data plans instead of those small 1 to 2 gigabyte data plans that you have to constantly worry about topping up all the time. You can grab an Olafly eSIM at a discount using the link in the description and discount code PROJECTUNTETHERED at checkout. Next is, what is the purpose of your visit? Now, obviously saying work or to find work when you're entering on a tourist visa is going to be an immediate denial. But even casual mentions of remote work, interviews, and meetings can raise red flags. The same goes for studying. A lot of people travel to other countries to learn different skills. For example, you might want to go to Italy to learn how to cook, or Thailand to learn Muay Thai, or India to learn yoga. But mentioning study on a tourist visa can be risky, especially if the immigration officer woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Now, you're not going to get in trouble if you're just going to take one random cooking class or something, which you probably wouldn't want to mention anyways. But if you're planning on doing anything in depth, even if it's just learning a language or something, they might be looking for a specific education visa. Here's another one for you. Let's say you're traveling abroad to visit a partner who's planning on showing you around his or her city. What do you think would be the safer response to the purpose of your visit question? That you're visiting your partner, or just saying tourism? This one's actually a bit tricky. There's nothing wrong with traveling to a different country to visit your partner, but it may raise suspicion and lead to a slew of other follow-up questions, especially if you're from certain nationalities. Tourism is the safer answer here and is less likely to get you follow-up questions. But if they ask about the address that you're staying at and you're planning to stay at your partner's house, then that might lead down an uncomfortable road. In the end, everyone's situation is different, but it's smart to be somewhat prepared on what you're going to say so you don't fall into any traps, even if your intentions are perfectly innocent. You never want to lie, but you do want to watch your words and always follow the #1 golden rule for immigration. Most of these questions are pretty standard and easy to prepare for, but what catches most travelers off guard are those unexpected follow-up questions, especially when those follow-up questions require proof. For example, the last immigration question video I made has helped over 500,000 people, and tons of people have been sharing their comments in immigration stories to help each other in the comments. And one of those commenters explained a story of what happened to them when arriving in France. After asking how much money she had, they followed up by asking her to show it, both the cash that she had on her as well as her bank accounts. Then when she was asked about her occupation and she told them she was a lawyer, they asked to see her work ID. Another example is you might be asked what hotel you're staying at, which is an easy answer, but then they might follow up by asking how much it cost you. These questions are hard to predict, so your best bet is to have confirmations saved in print or screenshots, or having that data eSIM where you can look things up on the spot, ideally multiple of these options. This is also why you never want to make stuff up in your answers, because if they hit you with an unexpected follow-up question, you could be in big trouble. The #1 golden rule of immigration is to never mention anything that's not specifically asked. When you're nervous, it's easy to start running your mouth, which is where people fall into traps. Instead, aim for the shortest answers possible. The fewer the details, the better, and if they want to know more information, they'll just ask more questions. Another way you can get yourself in big trouble in the airport is with TSA or airport security. One wrong move and you could find yourself in an extremely uncomfortable situation as they start tearing through your belongings. It's actually kind of easy to make some of these innocent TSA mistakes, so if you want to avoid trouble with airport security, watch this video next. Alright guys, like, subscribe, and do the things. Love you, bye bye.